Caitlin Clark delivered one of the most electrifying performances the WNBA has seen in years. A triple-double in a 93-58 rout over the Chicago sky. The kind of stat line that should have been plastered all over headlines, trending for all the right reasons. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. Clark, the rookie sensation with a spotlight bigger than most seasoned pros, looked every bit like the generational talent people had been hyping. She didn't just run the offense, she controlled the entire tempo of the game like a seasoned floor general. But just as the WNBA's new season was supposed to launch with a highlight reel celebration of basketball excellence, the narrative veered in a familiar, frustrating direction, away from the game and back into controversy. Once again, the rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese dominated the conversation. Not because of a buzzer beater, not because of a clutch play or some mind-blowing assist, but because of one moment, one foul, and one fiery reaction that instantly turned into social media fuel. It all went down in the third quarter. Clark, defending hard as always, committed a flagrant foul. Nothing brutal, nothing malicious, but it was just enough to spark a dramatic reaction from Angel Reese, who made sure the entire arena and the entire internet saw it. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere, not because of the foul itself, but because of how emotionally charged Reese's response was. Fans were divided, commentators were split, and former athletes, they dove in head first. One of the loudest voices in the aftermath was Robert Griffin III. The former NFL quarterback turned media personality didn't hold back when he broke it all down on his podcast, Out of Pocket with RGIII. To him, this wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment flare-up. It was something deeper, something personal. And he's convinced that Angel Reese's reaction wasn't just about the foul, it was about Caitlin Clark. "You guys remember last year?" Griffin asked his audience. "When Chennedy Carter gave Caitlin Clark that hip check, that flagrant foul, and Angel Reese was hyped. She was celebrating on the sideline like it was a game-winning shot." He paused, clearly setting up the contrast. Who does that? Who cheers like that when someone gets hit, unless they've got real issues with that player? That, according to Griffin, was the tell. It wasn't just a one-time reaction. It was a pattern of Angel Reese responding very differently depending on who's involved, especially when Clark's the one on the receiving end. To drive his point home, Griffin brought up a moment from the 2024 season, a much more aggressive incident involving Reese herself. During a game against the Connecticut Sun, Alyssa Thomas laid a hard foul on Reese that was so rough, the officials didn't hesitate to slap her with a flagrant 2 and toss her from the game. By all accounts, it was one of the most violent plays of the season. Yet Reese? She stayed cool. No yelling, no taunting, no big emotional scene. Just got up, dusted herself off, and played on. Griffin was baffled by the contrast. "She got chokeslammed," he said bluntly. "Alyssa Thomas hit her with a flagrant 2. She got kicked out. And what did Angel do? Nothing. No reaction. No screaming in her face. She didn't even act mad." Now fast forward to this game with Caitlin Clark, and it's a totally different energy. And that, he argued, is where the double standard becomes obvious. From Griffin's perspective, it's not just about how Reese reacts. It's who she reacts to. When she was the one taking the hit, and it came from someone outside the Caitlin Clark orbit, her response was surprisingly measured. But when the foul came from Clark, and this time it wasn't even that serious, suddenly, it was time for fireworks. That's not just inconsistent, Griffin argued. It's personal. He pointed out how every time Clark is involved, the reaction is magnified, the tension rises, the drama escalates. And for a league trying to grow, trying to build its brand around star power and compelling matchups, that kind of rivalry might be great for rating. But it's also creating a media circus that constantly shifts focus away from the basketball itself. The rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese isn't new. It dates back to college, when the two were already lighting up NCAA courts and trading spotlight moments. Their back and forth became must-watch TV during March Madness. Reese's infamous "you can't see me" gesture to Clark during the national championship was more than just a taunt. It was a viral flashpoint that became symbolic of a growing cultural divide in women's basketball. And now, as both players try to carve out their place in the WNBA, That rivalry has followed them into the pros, but instead of elevating the sport with a focus on their talents, the narrative keeps spiraling back into debates over fouls, reactions, and who disrespected whom. To Griffin, that's not the legacy these women should be building. These are two of the most talented, marketable players in the league, he said. But every time they're on the court together, it turns into a battle of emotions, not basketball. And I'm not saying don't play with passion. That's what makes sports great. But if we're being real, this feels personal. And personal beef shouldn't overshadow the game. Of course, not everyone agrees with Griffin's take. There are plenty who argue that Angel Reese has every right to react the way she does, that she's bringing fire, personality, and emotion to a league that's often been criticized for lacking those very things. To her supporters, Reese is being authentic, standing her ground, defending her teammates, and refusing to be passive in the face of physical play. But Griffin's argument isn't about silencing that passion. It's about consistency. If you're gonna go off when Caitlin Clark fouls you, he said, you better be ready to do the same when anyone else does it. Otherwise, it looks like it's not about the foul. It's about the person who did it. And that's where the debate continues to spark. Is Angel Reese being unfairly judged because of her outspokenness and emotional play? Or is there a deeper grudge driving her reactions when Caitlin Clark is involved? Depending on who you ask, the answer changes. What's undeniable is that this rivalry isn't going away anytime soon. If anything, it's getting hotter. Every game they play against each other draws bigger crowds, more eyeballs, and more opinions. And with Clark continuing to deliver elite-level performances and Reese constantly wearing her heart on her sleeve, the stage is set for a season full of fireworks. But Griffin's hope, and the hope of many basketball purists, is that the spotlight eventually shifts back where it belongs, on the game itself. He wrapped up his podcast segment with a plea for perspective. Look, we love rivalries. We love drama. That's what sports are about. But let's not let this turn into something toxic. Let's celebrate what Caitlin Clark just did. A triple-double in a season opener. That's legendary. That's what we should be talking about. And he's right. What Clark accomplished on that court was rare, historic even. Her ability to command the floor, create opportunities, and elevate her entire team was exactly what the WNBA hoped she'd bring. When she made the leap from Iowa to Indiana, she lived up to every ounce of the hype, and then some. But instead of basking in the brilliance of that performance, fans were stuck dissecting body language, side-eye glances, and sideline celebrations. Angel Reese is a phenomenal player. Her impact on the court is undeniable. Her presence, her confidence, and her fearlessness have made her a fan favorite and a major marketing asset for the league. But the constant tension with Clark risks turning every meeting into a spectacle that overshadows the substance. And that's the real shame, because when these two are at their best, when they're just bawling, not bickering, the level of basketball they produce is nothing short of elite. The league needs that. The fans deserve that. And both Reese and Clark have so much more to offer than just viral moments and controversy. As this season continues, all eyes will remain locked on their every move. Every foul, every celebration, every post-game comment will be picked apart and replayed. The question is whether the conversation can shift from conflict to competition, from controversy to greatness. Because if that happens, the WNBA won't just have a rivalry on its hands, it'll have a legacy in the making.